The 21st is that's our fundraiser. Our fundraiser comedy show, our pre-Juneteenth. It's gonna be a great show. We got Rob Allen, Rob Coleman, Bruce Haynes may stop by, and yours truly is gonna be your host. And also, guess what? I got it, and I have to report it. We got the lecture series set up with the marketplace. That's going to be the 10th, June 10th and 11th. That's going to be June 10th and 11th. You want to get your tickets to that as well. We got Brother Moore coming in, Dr. T.O. Moore coming in. We got Asar Imhotep coming in. It's going to be two powerful lectures that you want to be there and be a part of. Brother Moore is just going to be throwing it down with something very interesting, just getting us ready for the things that come. And Brother Asar is going to be tying in this whole cultural unity of Africa through linguistics. So it's going to be powerful. And then at the end of the month, y'all, we're going to be doing a motherland connection, taste and touch of Africa, where we're going to have 4 or 5 dishes for you to taste, listening to African music, naming Pharaoh and Queen of the night. We're going to try to get Dr. Whitaker and so to speak. It's African drumming. You get a chance to put those duds on and dust that old dashiki out of the closet and come on out and have a good time. That's going to be at the Mediterranean. That's the last Sunday of June, 6 to 11. You want to be a part of that. And also, we're looking for vendors in that marketplace on the 10th and 11th. So if you want to be a vendor, give me a call, 216-323-6155. And in the remote studio, we got our main man, Brother Vince. What's going on?
Well, it's like you. We got a lot of things going on. And your boy Rob Coleman, he's going to be doing a comedy workshop at Larchmere Arts next Saturday. So if you're interested in learning the craft of comedy, you can check out Rob at Larchmere Arts. I think he's charging $50, but it's $50 well spent, no question about it. So check us out. You can go to the Facebook page and get the information that you need. You will have access to an email address that you can send information to, and he'll get you plugged in. So that's coming next Saturday at Larchmere Arts. The program will start at 2 in the afternoon. So log on and get that checked out. So we're going to be beefing things up at Larchmere Arts. A lot of things are planned for the summer. So just stay plugged in. Go to the Larchmere Arts Facebook page, and you'll find out under the events tab what things are going to be happening. So that's that on this end. We have a great show for you today, and we have some serious information to talk to you about because the economics of this country and the economics of the world are in a state of flux. There are going to be changes happening with your money that you may not be aware of, such as your money having an expiration date and you being completely unable to save money in the system that they have planned for you. So we're going to take a look at what that looks like and also talk about some alternatives, because there are things that you can do to prepare yourself for what is to come. To shed some light on this subject, we've brought in one of our local experts. He just happens to be the author of one of the most profound books written in the history of humanity. I hope I'm not blowing it up too much, Brother Wayne, but that's the way I feel about it. I tell folks all the time, if you don't have this book, you need to have this book. His name is Wayne Chandler. The name of the book is Ancient Future, The Teachings and Prophetic Wisdom of the 7 Hermetic Laws of Ancient Egypt. In addition to that, he is a researcher par excellence, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to have him on today, because he does his homework and he shares that information with us. And we'll give you some details on how you can plug into our community where we are looking into these things and coming up with some strategies to deal with what is already happening. So with that, it gives me great pleasure to bring to our airwaves Brother Wayne B. Chandler. Wayne, how are you today?
I'm doing, I'm getting there. My cousin called me at 5 o'clock in the morning this morning and woke me up, and I couldn't get back to sleep. Had to go to the airport after that. It's been one of those kind of days.
Okay.
But I'm hanging in there.
All right.
Okay.
Well, we're certainly glad to have you on. You're no stranger to 360 Info Network. We lean on you to understand certain things. In addition to all the other things that we talk about, you are one who is very immersed in Qigong and the benefits that it provides. And You have quite a bit of knowledge on precious metals, which is really relevant to our conversation today. So we got about 7 minutes before we take our first break. You want to start by just talking about where we are in relation to the debt ceiling and the fiscal crisis that America is experiencing right now.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at, this debt ceiling issue, and the thing is, and this is what most people, don't realize or even, recognize, is that all of this is just like a play. It's something that has been implemented with the ultimate design to move us into what are called CBDCs, or central bank digital currencies. And in order to get us to that place, the dollar that we are familiar with has to be eradicated in its totality. And supposedly, the dates that have been thrown out there are July 27th, which will make using cash, and that cash as is represented on debit and credit cards, cash that is represented in your pocket when you pull it out to pay for various commodities, will become illegal to use on July 27th, with hopes that everyone will be forced into embracing this new currency that Vince was talking about, referred to as CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. And the dynamics that are encoded in the central bank digital currency is that Microsoft or Gates is behind it, and it's pretty much in the way they're laying it out, it's an embedded chip that has a biometric feature in that it senses a person's bodily movement, temperatures, heart rate, eye activity, um, blood flow, brainwave patterns. All of these things are encoded within the chip, and the chip also transmits a signal that will allow its operator, its user, to receive wireless digital CBDCs as a
Right.
means to support themselves. Um,
Hmm.
it's a profound undertaking, and what's happening now as this currency is rolled out around the world, because it's being used pretty profusely in various areas. China, um, Australia, some of the islands that are close to the states, Nigeria, and it's opening up other countries in Africa as well. So there's a lot of pushback. What they did with Nigeria was, when they first brought CBDCs on the Nigerian financial stage, only 0.5% of the people invested in the utilization of these CBDCs. And most people didn't want to use them. So what they did is they limited the amount of money that the Nigerian population could pull from their ATMs, and put it to 40 lira, and that was per week, which was not enough, nowhere close to being enough for the population to invest in the things they needed, pay bills, purchase food for themselves, for their families. And what that did is that it literally pushed the population through survival mode and a means of surviving this into 90% usage of these CBDCs because families were literally starving. So, what's going to happen here in the States remains to be seen. We don't know fully what the design is going to look like. We know what they're trying to implement, but we can't say what the fallout is really going to be.
Okay, so we're going to take kind of a dive into the timing of it because we know that the new payment system Fed now goes into effect on July 1st. And we also know that the country is supposed to potentially go into default in June. So we're going to have to pay attention to this. It's not unprecedented that either the country goes into default or that they raise the debt ceiling because this is what they need to do to avoid default. And we kind of go through this charade every so often where they threaten to shut down the government because of the potential of going into default. So we're going to talk about the implications of that. We're also going to talk about some things that you can do to have your resources in a place where they're not subject to the same risk or the same level of scrutiny that the central bank digital currency system is going to create for us. So we're going to talk about that and more when we return. This is 360 Info Network on AM 1490 WERE with your hosts, Antonio and Vince Robinson, and our guest, Wayne B. Chandler, author of Ancient Future. We'll be back with more 360 Info right after this.
Okay, gentlemen. I think it's very interesting, Wayne, because since we're still alive, so we might as well talk. Um, yeah, Wayne, it's going to be interesting on how they roll this thing out and the pushback. I was, thinking um, about them in dealing with this biological warfare piece that might cause a big pushback of folks coming together because a lot of stuff is coming out about all the lies that's been told about the jab and all the fallout, and now the people's not talking about the excess death that is going on all over the world. These folks just dropping, and
Yep.
so and I think folks are getting more and more educated about this and resisting to
We're
any kind of
back.
government.
360 Info Network here on AM 1490 WERE with your hosts, Antonio and Vince Robinson. Our guest is Wayne B. Chandler. He is the author of Ancient Future, The Teachings and Prophetic Wisdom of the Seven Hermetic Laws of Ancient Egypt. And we are talking about central bank digital currencies. We're talking about the state of the economy. You know, America, quiet as it's kept, is broke. They've borrowed as much money as they possibly can. And in order for them to continue to operate the government, they're going to have to increase their credit limit. And they've already told you that they plan to do this. But right now, you have a stalemate between the Republicans and the Democrats, or perhaps the Democrats and the leader of the Republicans on Capitol Hill. And I'm speaking of the Speaker of the House. So there is a showdown going on right now, and they're going to keep us in a state of suspension until they get right up close to the wire. And then I'm anticipating that we might have some kind of miraculous announcement that we work things out and we'll be able to continue. Or you never know, Brother Wayne. They might just let the country go into default and let everybody experience the anxiety and the stress that goes with knowing that if they're getting a government check, they won't get the check. And that creates the instability and it promulgates the fear that is used to manipulate the population of this country. That's the way they do things, bruh. They keep
Yeah.
people in a constant state of fear, the constant state of survival mentality. And, it doesn't really give you much room for thinking about anything else other than how am I going to eat? How am I going to keep clothes on my back? How am I going to keep the rent paid? And when you're occupied with those thoughts, you're not thinking about how can we push back against the control that they want to exert over us. So, what are your thoughts about the way that they're rolling things out to keep us in that state of mind?
I think that it's going to be interesting, definitely, because whenever we go through this whole piece with the debt ceiling, which is cyclical, I mean, it happens, all of the time. But this time, I really feel that it could play out very differently. And the reason being that they have a plan. That plan is to completely remove uh, the currency that we've been utilizing, for the last several decades. And in order for them to do that, they've already set up and rolled out the Fed Now program, which is the platform that's going to carry, promote, and distribute these CBDCs. So the mere fact that all of those pieces are in place, if they allow the debt ceiling to like really be just reinforced and again back into this place of financial operational design, then that throws off their formula of what it is they want to implement with the coming of the CBDCs and the setup of the Fed Now, platform, which means that they would have to wait another year or so before they can really launch this program that they have spent so much time, so much effort in creating. And I just don't see how they're going to allow all of that to kind of fall by the wayside. And, they just say, okay, well, we just have to suck it up and we'll wait for the next cycle. I don't see that happening. So I really believe that this whole thing with the debt ceiling and this stalemate that's taking place right now, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all smoke and mirrors, and that when the final bell is rung, that the debt ceiling, everything is going to collapse. And people will be moved into this place of looking at a digital currency because they're going to make sure that in some way, some form, some fashion, their life is going to have to depend on it to get them to move into the acceptance of this new currency.
Well, we know that most of the currency that we're already using is digital because the money supply only includes about 4% in fiat currency. The rest of it is digital. So, for them to make a switch over to something new, it doesn't seem to be that far fetched. Can you talk about what it means to be using fiat currency? Because this is really one of the reasons that our money is worth so much less than it used to be before. And precious metals are extremely important in this scenario because it's one of the ways that you can store something of value. We've talked about central bank digital currencies having expiration dates. And with that, it would prevent you from literally saving anything because it's going to be a non-issue in a matter of whatever the term of that particular currency is. But if you have something like silver and gold, something that is of value and has been seen as a store of value over the years, when you need to make a transaction, when you need to make a purchase, you have something that someone will accept as having value so that you can obtain whatever good or service you're interested in.
Yeah, definitely. Precious metals are a very solid asset. And, one of the examples I love, to reflect upon is Gates, and his relationship with Warren Buffett. Buffett, made global news, global, you know, when he invested, I believe it was like, we're in 23 now. I believe it was 21 that he invested $530 million into gold, and 1.2 billion ounces of silver were purchased by him or via his company. And you have to look at the um, the obviousness of such an investment, because when you look at Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, there are only three people that sit on the Gates Foundation in terms of organizers and facilitators. That's Bill Gates, Linda Gates, and Warren Buffett. Now, Microsoft, slash Bill Gates, they are the designers and manufacturers of this new currency that is about to run roughshod, over America, east, west, north to south. And it cannot be coincidence that all of a sudden a man, Warren Buffett, who has never invested in gold, who has talked religiously in the downside of gold as a profitable asset, now turns around and invests $500 million into gold. So the way I read that is there was a bug in his ear that was informing him what the end game was going to look like. The central banks of the world, all of the central banks, have invested more substantially into gold over these last 2 years than ever in the history of the central bank set up. So there's preparation that's taken place. The dollar has been defunct pretty much since 1971, when we came off of the gold standard, via Nixon. And from that point on, it has been literally eroding away with respect to its value. Right now, most analysts, financial pundits, state that the dollar is worth anywhere between 3 to 5 cents. And most of these pundits stick with 3 cents, that the dollar is only worth 3 cents. That's how much of its value, 97% of its value, its worth, has been lost. So when we look at the coming of the CBDCs, especially, for us, the CBDC connects and integrates with a larger system, which is a surveillance system that incorporates 15-minute cities and smart cities social credit scores into one cadre of, specific operational design that everyone is going to be swept up into. And where we are, Cleveland, is one of those 15-minute cities. And the current mayor of Cleveland has already substantially written and invested into Cleveland's future as a 15-minute city and what that looks like. So we're in a very challenging place with respect to how we're going to move forward, and the utilization of precious metal assets is the thing that we need to use to dodge this current bullet that is being aimed at, humanity really as a whole. But speaking within the shores of America, definitely against Americans.
Yeah, this is definitely part of a global, not a conspiracy, because they throw out that term conspiracy theory, but there are realities in terms of what is actually going on. I want to bring our brother Antonio into the conversation. And Brother Lynn, did you have a question or an observation that you wanted to offer?
Yes, it's a couple things for sure. With this, Wayne, I was just wondering, and we talk about bricks, and you made the connection of us, and I think I spoke about it before. The system that we have is very similar to the system that China is using, and so we can see a connection there. So my question is, how, when you talk about this globalization, how are they going to tie all this together? Because right now they got us in a state of fear of showing a big division between the other countries lining up and doing what they are about to do as far as the dollar is concerned. But at the same time, they're segueing into the same type of digital system that we are on the horizon here in this particular country. And then the second part to that is we talked before about the pushback, and you can go as close as Florida, saying they're not going to acquiesce to uh, this particular system. So what do you perceive what kind of division that's going to cause, and the pushback that is going to cause throughout the country, and then how does that place us and look towards, I mean, as far as the Russia and China outside looking in of all this discord going on in America?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, holistically, I feel that we are being pushed into a new way of how humanity needs to operate within a financial construct. And that what are the underlying dynamics which supports that construct and makes it valid, as opposed to just dust in the wind. And right now in America, there's pushback against the CBDCs, speaking about the governor in Florida, but there are also individuals in the Fed that are speaking up against, going against Powell and speaking up against the CBDC release. Now, one of the things that's taking place in America right now is that you have currently 17 different states that have dropped legislation to make gold and silver legal tender in those states. Texas has come up just in the last week and has not only dropped legislation to make silver and gold legal currency for use in the state of Texas, but they have also created their own digital gold back token currency
Wow.
that whoever is using these tokens can literally take the tokens and cash them in if they choose, can cash them in for actual gold that they can hold in their hands. This is a direct slap in the face to the Fed and basically giving them the finger and telling them that they are not going to be a part of this roving insanity that they're trying to implement and institute. So, Florida is another one, Utah. I mean, you have a windfall of various states across the country right now that are really pushing back against this. So, that being said, the only way that they're going to be able to really move this along is to create some level of pandemonious upheaval that will drive people into the utilization of these CBDCs because most people do not have a sense of value around silver and gold. And that's going to be the downfall of millions of Americans. You know, they
Well, I
talk
think,
about the, yeah.
go ahead.
Mhm.
I was just going to say, it looks like we're going to have to move towards alternative systems. For instance, if you're not able to use US dollars, fiat currency anymore, then people find ways to get around it. So, for instance,
Black
bartering is
market.
something that's going to create, yeah, it's going to come into prominence now because folks realize that they have something of value and somebody else has something of value. So, a fair exchange, no dollars change hands. This move towards central bank digital currencies is intended to prevent us from doing the things that we've been doing for years and years. If you know somebody and you give them cash, you know, that's a transaction that can't be tracked because it was a peer-to-peer transaction using something that was accepted as currency. But just to shed some light on what happened back in 1971, countries from around the world could come to the United States and say, we want to exchange your dollars for gold.
Yep.
And with all these countries coming and saying, give us the gold, Nixon was put in a position where if he didn't do something, the gold reserves that America had would be
Would drain
completely
out.
depleted. you
That's
know.
right.
So now we're using something that's not backed by anything, has no value other than what is assigned by the military of this country. And we've gotten so used to using it. But we have to remember that in 1933, President Roosevelt told Americans that they had to give up all of their gold. And what we
Right.
saw was we saw a transformation of our economy as a result of that. So here we are in 2023, standing on the precipice of something that could be equally as devastating. And so if you don't really have an understanding of how this financial system works, you could be on the outside looking in, and you would be allowing them to use the nanotechnology. In the beginning of the show, you talked about how they will be able to monitor your bodily activity data. They'll basically have a direct connection to your existence. And ultimately, they want to be able to control every aspect of your life. That's why they want to move towards these 15-minute cities, because they're using climate change as a ruse to implement their control of everybody. So they want to tell you,
Exactly.
hey, you can't drive to California to see your mama because you're going to burn up so much gas, you're going to emit so much carbon into the atmosphere. So the best thing for you is to stay at home and pull your grandmama up or pull your mama up on FaceTime and have that conversation instead of driving to California and being able to hug your mama, and get what happens, when that happens. It's like it's neutralizing our humanity in a sense, and really giving them complete access over our bodies and over our minds, because as we have this conversation, we have all these things that are in place to occupy our headspace, and most people, I would venture to say, are not having the conversation that we're having right now. That's why it's so important for us to talk about these things, just so that people know. We talk about gold, we talk about silver, we also can have a conversation about Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is something that exists with its own infrastructure, and it's seen as a digital store of value. And unlike US dollars, which are being devalued because they're creating so many more of them, Bitcoin has a finite supply, its own infrastructure. And as a result of that, it's going to have tremendous value. Just to let the listeners know, you can acquire Bitcoin, you can store it on a personal storage device and keep it disconnected from the banks and keep it disconnected from the ability of others to get to it and take it away from you. The threat that central bank digital currencies exists, the threat that they hold over us, is that they'll have complete control of your money, and you won't be able to tell them, hey, I'm not paying you so much. They're just going to take money away from you. And they're also, again, going to be able to have complete access to all of your assets. So just want to encourage folks to explore other options. So, Brother Wayne, let's talk about what some of those options are. In our community, we're able to offer people suggestions about things that they can do to acquire assets that they will have complete control over. So let's talk about what some of those things might be.
One of the things, I mean, you just mentioned, which was Bitcoin, and most people who aren't familiar with purchasing and investing in cryptocurrencies will look at the price of Bitcoin and go, "Oh my God, $27,000 a coin! I can't afford that." But this is the thing: you don't have to invest in an entire Bitcoin. You can buy Bitcoin in fractions. And that's the other piece that is so sweet in the investment of various assets like Bitcoin and like silver and like gold. That you can actually invest in these things fractionally as opposed to getting in an entire ounce of gold, which is about 2000, what, 2000 $40 right now, $2050. Most people are going to look at that and go, there's no way I can afford that. I can't afford to dig in my pocket for 1 ounce of gold." You don't have to do that. You can go and purchase 1/10 of an ounce, 1/4 of an ounce, 1/2 of an ounce of a gold coin, and begin to stack and develop, your precious metals in that sense. The same thing with silver. Silver right now, I mean, really, uh, across
That's
the
a fact.
board, silver is very cheap. Right now, silver is about 24, $25 for an ounce. And you have to, as a speculator, you have to look at where these assets are going to go. Where is Bitcoin going to go? What is it going to develop into with respect to its valuation? Where is silver and gold going to go with respect, to the valuation? And most of the pundits, that are out here talking about silver and gold and giving projections on just those two assets, looking at gold, you have individuals like Jim Rickards, who's one of the coldest in the game, who has done the math, who has analyzed and done the math and put out specs, which states that by 2025, gold is going to be at $15,000 an ounce. 15,000. So even if you purchase gold in its fractional states, you're going to have something that you can fall back on, that is a store of value, that is not only holding, you know, um, your stores of abundance, because the CBDCs, as Vince said, you know, diminish in value, and they have expiration dates. So at the end of every month, they're done, which means you cannot build and create abundance for yourself.
That's a
Your
quick
days of developing, creating um,
wealth.
abundance for you and your family and for future generations comes to an abrupt halt
Mm.
if you go the route of the CBDCs.
Wow,
So,
wow.
so what becomes imperative is looking at gold and silver as a means of creating, maintaining, and developing, a future in your financial investments that CBDCs are not going to be able, to give you. So gold, silver, and a lot of people will say, "Whoa, oh man, okay, I got gold, I got silver, but how can I use that? I can't walk into a store with gold and silver, and they're going to." You're right. At this particular point in time, you're right. But things are changing so rapidly that the game is really, really leaning into our favor. So you have different institutions like UPMA, which is a silver and gold setup where you can actually open an account in this facility, and they will give you a debit card connected to your account that you can use anywhere in the world. And what you do is you just build gradually your account so that you get a substantial amount of silver or gold in that account that you can use in the years to come. There's another company called One Gold. One Gold has the same setup, and One Gold is partnered with an individual by the name of Rick Rule, who is one of the more renowned figures in the silver and gold metal assets market. And very respectable, very moral, very honest about just the whole ins and outs and dealings with using metals, acquiring metals as an asset, for generating future abundance and financial stability. And then you have another organization, which is called Glint, and Glint is out of the UK, and they are a gold based operation. And like One Gold, like UPMA, once you open an account with them, and you can open an account with as little as 1 penny worth of gold, you get a debit card that's directly connected to your account. So the financial landscape is shifting and changing profoundly. And it's really shifting into the mode and method of those who have the information, who have the knowing of what's coming around the corner and what that looks like, and have been able to start preparation for a new way of doing business.
So essentially, what you shared with us is that there are a few alternatives that you have now that you can actually begin to acquire gold. You mentioned One Gold and Glint Pay, and they will actually issue you a credit card or debit card that you can spend against the value of your account. I also want to mention something called gold backs, and these are paper and polymer instruments that you can purchase, and you can walk into a store and spend that. This is an alternative to spending fiat currency, and it is a way that you're not actually dealing with central bank digital currencies because you have an alternative form of currency. So I just want to make sure that folks out there understand that, you're not at this point, you're not stuck. And I think, Brother Wayne, you also let us know in our meetings how certain states are saying, well, we want to use gold as currency in our states. So, we look at all the doom and gloom that's coming from the top. I didn't bring this up, but there's this thing called the Bank of International Settlements. And all of the banks report to the Bank of International Settlements. And the Bank of International Settlements actually wants to bring about a digital currency, a central bank digital currency, and put the entire
Unicoin.
world on it, the
Yeah,
unicorn. So all of
unicoin.
these, yeah, all of these things are, they're in play. But as you mentioned, there's pushback. You mentioned the governor of Florida, and I think Ted Cruz down in Texas has some objections to CBDCs, and so it's not necessarily etched in stone that all the things that they want to put in motion will actually happen. And ultimately what has to happen is the people have to stand up and say no. We can look at what happened in Nigeria and see that they push folks into a place where, you're going to submit or else, and perhaps that the folks in Nigeria are not as potentially organized as some folks in America are. So,
They didn't have options.
yeah,
Hmm.
they didn't.
Yeah.
They
Well,
didn't.
one thing I want to bring into us for us to look at further your research, and and dealing with when we start talking about precious metals. I remember doing some research. It was either silver or copper. See, we got to one thing to do is to look at what the world uses the most, which precious metal, like for copper for piping, or silver for whatever instrumentation that they need it for. Look at what mineral uh, that they use uh, for making whatever. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was copper. They was talking about copper only having so much copper left on the planet. And I believe it's copper. Copper, don't hold me to it. But one of those minerals like that we use all the time in our building machinery and instrumentation, stuff like that. They was plotting and saying that it was only so much of its left. So I was just saying, if we also look at investing into those particular things that are going to be in uses all the time, that could be to an advantage to us as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, silver is one of those assets that has a very limited presence, in terms of longevity. And what we're looking at, see, silver is very unique in the sense that it's an industrial metal
Right.
as well as a
Yes.
currency, as
Mhm.
well as a jewelry oriented metal. And so, because silver is in such great demand in those three categories, I mean, silver literally undergirds the entire solar paneling industry. Without silver, you would have no solar paneling, no solar houses, and other types of constructural designs, that incorporate solar science, into its structures. The other thing is, they look at silver as only being available for another 24 years.
Right. Okay.
And that being the case, you then begin to see how valuable something like silver really is, because the less we have of it, the more valuable it
Mhm.
becomes.
Yes.
And silver is going to, and I'm gonna tell you, and all metal analysts and investors who are serious will all tell you that in a metals cycle, it always starts off with gold running strong and hard out of the gates. But silver always, in terms of value
All
and
around value.
importance,
Hmm.
always overtakes gold. So the way they break it down is the first half, as we're going around the track, belongs to gold, but the whole second half all belongs to silver. And that's why, we tell people, if they cannot make the investment into gold, don't worry about it. Make that investment into silver. We used silver in this country as a stable form of currency up until 1964.
Wow.
So we've gotten quite a bit to digest here, but I think what we can take away from the conversation today is that if you don't have precious metals, you need to acquire precious metals right now. And
Definitely.
there are several different ways that you can do it. It can be relatively painless. You can go to websites like milesfranklin.com and purchase coins there. You can use the three things that we suggested: UPMA, One Gold, and Glint Pay. You can definitely start stacking because you will want to have something that is a store of value. We have established definitively that the more money they print, the less it's worth. So they can say a dollar is worth 3 cents right now, but in reality, it's probably worth less than that. And as they continue to print money, it's going to get to a point where it's really not worth anything, not even a cent. So that's the reason, that's a major reason that they have to do this great reset because they're running out of time. Brother Wayne, it's been a pleasure to have you on this morning. We're going to have you back so we can dive into this at greater length. And we can also invite folks to the meetings that we host on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. So we'll post information about that so that you can plug in, tune in, and start stacking, start stacking gold,
No
silver, start
question.
stacking Bitcoin,
If if
because,
if you can't hold it,
you don't own
you
it.
don't own it.
There it is. All right. Well, Brother Wayne, again, thank you for joining us this morning, and we'll look forward to having you on soon.
Thanks for having me, my brothers.
All right,
All
my brother.
right. Okay. Brother Lynn,
Um,
I know you have a few
uh-huh.
things you want to get out there before we
Yeah,
conclude.
yeah. Just to wrap up the show as well. Yeah, just to let you know that a lot of confusion and chaos is coming. So hold on to your belt and don't try not to make those big investments. So come on out. Hey, let's laugh before all this take place. So come out to the comedy show next week. It'll help us on our pre-Juneteenth thing. It's all about getting our mind right, and we need some vendors. 216-323-6155, because we got two powerful lectures that's come up. So stay tuned, and you want to be a part of that.
Okay, so your comedy show is coming up next Saturday?
Next Sunday, the
Oh, next
21st.
Sunday.
Yeah, the
Okay.
21st. Mm-hmm.
All right.
216
And
323 Go ahead.
there you go. And we're
Mhm.
going to have your comedy partner, Rob Coleman, over at Larchmere Arts next Saturday at 2 o'clock. So if you're interested in learning what it takes to be a comedian, you can get your funny on like our brother Antonio. He's versed in the craft. He knows how to operate on that stage, but you can learn some of the same techniques and the same theories, and it will give you that benefit as well. So go to Facebook, go to Larchmere Arts Facebook page, and you can get the details on how you can learn comedy and perhaps be on a stage with the mic, getting folks to laugh at the things that bring them so much stress and anxiety. We'd like to thank everyone for joining us on 360 Info Network this morning. We'd like to thank our engineer in Tone, because Tone made this happen today. We have a live broadcast on Facebook, and we're going to do more of this in the future. Until then, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make today your best day. Peace.
Peace.